We have Dennis James on the line. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Ken.
You have one of the most recognizable voices and faces in all of broadcasting. You know that, don't you?
Well, I didn't know that, but I thank you.
You've been around since the very inception of television. In fact, you have a number of firsts to your credit, including the first one to be videotaped. Is that what it says here?
Oh, yeah. A videotape came much later. That was quite a sensation, too. At the time, I was spokesman for Old Gold cigarettes, and we just finished the first commercial, and the videotape came on, and it was like looking in a mirror when you weren't doing anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a cigarette in my hand. There I was smoking the cigarette the second after I had done it. I don't smoke cigarettes now, incidentally, but yeah, that videotape was very interesting, but it goes way back beyond that. I started in 1938, and there was nobody around in those days. That's why there's so many firsts involved.
You know, there was a motion picture, I think it was called My Favorite Year, and they brought back that dancing cigarette carton and match book.
Uh-huh.
You were doing those kind of commercials way back in the early days, though, weren't you?
Yeah, I did the Old Gold, and we started the dancing pack thing. Mm-hmm. Also, I was the first one to do wrestling. You want to blame me for that?
I was going to say, we've come full circle. It's back on again.
Oh, and back on, bigger than ever.
Yeah. I have to tell you, I saw you so much as a kid on television, and I always enjoyed watching you, but I had a real thrill because I was doing a flight. In fact, I was working here, but I flew out to California, and we were on the same airline together.
Really?
And yeah, you were at O'Hare, and we both got on, and I came up and I introduced myself, and of course you didn't know me from anybody, but you were...
How old were you then?
Well, I was probably 20 years younger than I am now.
I see.
But you were very nice, just cordial as could be, and I thought, boy, there's a nice guy, you know?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, you don't know me, but that was the first experience I had, and you must get that all the time because people... Do you ever have trouble trying to remember who you're supposed to know? When you're on television, everybody walks up to you and they say, "Hi, Dennis," and you're wondering, now, do I know this person, or is this just some person that's seen me on the TV? You know?
Well, actually, Ken, it works the other way. People, see me and say, "Are you from Bloomington, Illinois?" And I'd say, "No." Was it Jersey? And they forget that they saw you on television. They think they met you somewhere in person. And speaking of an airline, I had a little woman come running up to the first class 5 times with different cities. Finally, I said, "Honey, I think you're thinking of television," and she almost died.
Yes. Then she realized who you were.
Right.
Yeah. I guess that's how Alan Funt and people like that were able to keep doing Candid Camera. People just don't expect to see somebody on television.
That's right.
In real life. It's also an incentive, I suppose, to stay away from those gangster films because if a police officer stops you, he's liable to haul you into the station house before he realizes that there was just a movie he saw you in.
Well, they won't touch Zsa Zsa, boy.
You're right. There's a special telethon coming up. Is this right? Is this your 40th year?
Yep.
Good heavens.
I'm going to keep doing it, Ken, till I get it right.
Hey, that's a great attitude. Have we made any progress in this whole business of finding a cure for cerebral palsy?
You have no idea. Actually, it's not a cure because it's not a disease. You see, cerebral palsy is an injury. It's an affliction. It's an injury to the motor section of the brain. And what we're working on, and it's been very, very successful, is trying to eliminate the cause of cerebral palsy at birth. And we feel in only 10 years, by the year 2000, and this is quite a statement to make, no child will be born with cerebral palsy. Now, you might ask, well, how can you say that? First of all, we know that if a young girl got pregnant and got German measles, she would invariably have a child with cerebral palsy. But now we have a vaccine, the rubella serum, that prevents German measles in a young lady, and therefore that's one cause that's eliminated. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And all the other things like oxygen at birth and the forceps births.
Okay.
When we eliminate all of those, we'll eliminate the actual cause at birth. Now, CP can be caused by a slip on the ice, a hit on the head, an automobile accident. It's an injury to the brain.
Okay. So rather than a cure, what I should be asking is there going to be a correction possible for people who do have it? And maybe that's down the road someplace.
Well, yeah, it really is. Now, you see, also, there's something they're working on right now, the fontanella, the very soft center of the top of your head when you're a little baby.
Right, that's the part that goes up and down, right? When
yeah, that's going to be an entrance to be able to work on that brain. That's what we're working on, you see, rather than go through a skull. And when they can locate where the damage is with things like laser and so on, they could probably repair that damage. That's another thing we're all excited about.
Yeah. How did you get so active in this? 40 years. You have some real dedication to it. I understand.
Well, it started, without any real connection with it. Ed Sullivan came to me and asked me if I would do a benefit for cerebral palsy. Well, I had just graduated pre-med, and I didn't even know what cerebral palsy was. I said, what is that? He said, well, it's some kind of a thing, but we want to get together. And there are about 11 women who have children here, and nobody knows what it is, and they're trying to educate the public. So with Jerry Colonna and about 4 other stars, we did this auction and raised the first monies. And then they decided the following year to do a telethon. And Bob Whiteman, who was head of all talent for Paramount Theaters, booking the talent, because, and I'm digressing a moment, Leonard Goldenson, who was head of ABC Paramount, he had a child with cerebral palsy. And a guy named Jack Hausman had a child with cerebral palsy. And the wives said, you gentlemen are businessmen, you got to do something about this. We got to find out what it is, what we can do about it. So Leonard Goldenson used the facilities of the Paramount Theater in New York. So they used a different star every half hour for the course of the 20 hours. That's what their intention was.
Right, and then finally it was your turn.
11 o'clock at night, it was my turn. And thank heavens, the phones went 100% and stayed that way. So Bob Whiteman said, hey, let's keep this kid on and let the other stars work with him. And that's how it became that I was the official master of ceremonies that worked all 20 hours. And I didn't do it just New York after that. We did it all over the country. Mm-hmm. I would go to Peoria, Illinois, or to Denver, Colorado, all over.
And this year...
12 years ago, we went national. So I wear 2 hats, being a national host, and then when we turn it over locally, I stay right on in New York, even though I'm living in California, I fly back there, and I stay on for the full 24 hours.
So you're the one that doesn't get the sleep, really?
No sleep, no. But I've gotten used to it through the years. On the West Coast, John Ritter will be here, and Henry Winkler, and Nancy Morgan, John's wife, and Nancy Dussault. And in New York, I've got a great team of talent. Ben Vereen, the new kids on the block will be with us all through the whole telethon. Tiffany, and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And it's going to be a great rundown from our standpoint.
It's going to be on the 20th and 21st of this month.
Right.
And, I don't know what station it's going to be on around here, but I'm sure
Peoria's carrying it. You near Peoria?
Yeah, we sure are.
Well, they're carrying it. It's an ABC station.
Okay. Well, that'll be...
WHOI.
Right, out of Peoria.
I think it's Channel 19.
Right. It's 11:14 in the morning. We're talking with Dennis James. Let me break for a commercial, and we'll talk more about you and whatever you want to talk about. How about it?
All right, Ken.
In fact, would you mind taking a call from a person if we have anybody out there?
I wouldn't mind.
They've seen you back. We can talk about some of those early days of television if you like, and what it was like.
Anything you want. It's your show, babe.
All right. It's great. Dennis James is on the line, folks. 829-2345 is my number, or 1-800-322-9377.
Ensign Burgers Furniture offers generous savings on the finest solid oak dining sets meticulously crafted by Richardson Brothers. During their January clearance sale, save 30% off the list price on country, contemporary, or rural English-style sets. The tables have solid wood tops specially treated to repel stains, and most of these Richardson models have 4 self-storing leaves. Shop now for 10 to 50% savings on Richardson Brothers dining sets during the January clearance sale at Ensign Burgers Furniture in downtown Bloomington, where free delivery and 90 days same as cash are still part of the bargain.
Oops, I lost somebody there. If you want to call in and ask a question, it can be about cerebral palsy, it can be about TV. Dennis James is a guy that was there when they were still trying to figure out how to work the cameras, I imagine. Right, Dennis?
And how, boy? Yes, it was 140 degrees in the studio.
You were doing sports at one time, weren't you? You were a sportscaster.
Yeah, I did a lot of sports. I luckily was outstanding sportscaster of the year for 3 years back then.
Mm-hmm. I'd come to think of it, doing a telethon is, for the most part, all live, isn't it? I mean, there are probably some tape segments.
Yeah, but we're live.
But you're live.
A tape segment here and there. If Frank Sinatra did a good piece for us last year, we get his permission to use that same song this year,
Yeah. Good morning. You're on the air. Hello.
Yes, I'm calling. Want to talk to Dennis?
You're on with him.
Okay. In 1981, in October, a group from Bloomington, Illinois, came down on Park Hill tour, and we stopped at the Holiday Inn, and you were there too in Tallahassee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Chattanooga. And a lady and I was standing downstairs, and you was walking across on the, how the open stairway was.
Yeah.
And you were up there with your ice bucket. You hollered down, want to know where we was from, and we got talking to you, and next morning you came out and came out where our bus was loading up, and you took pictures. In fact, I've got one of you standing with your arm around me.
You haven't used that for blackmail, have you?
No.
All right.
Hey, Ken, and what is the lady's name? What is your name, hon?
Hi, my name is Shirley Baker.
With Shirley?
Uh-huh.
I have another situation like that. I came out of a hotel one day, and there were ladies, a bunch of ladies in a bus, outside of a bus.
Uh-huh.
He said, "Oh, Mr. James, can we have a picture?" And I said, "Oh, sure." And I stood in the crowd. He said, "No, no, no, no. We want you to take it of us."
Well, you were out there taking the groups of us and by the bus, and this bus from Champaign, and you saw we had our nameplates on, and you came and you said you saw my name, you hollered at me, so come up here, I want a picture with you, and you had your arm around me, and somebody else took a picture. And you went around and gathered up all of our cameras and took pictures of every group was in that group.
Isn't that a nice boy?
Yeah, you were. We appreciate that.
No, Countess Kinigo from Champaign. She owns the radio station and newspaper up there.
Yeah.
Well, she's a good friend of mine.
Well, we used to live in Champaign County, farmed over there.
Huh?
Now we're living in Hayward, south of Bloomington.
I see.
But I thought I'd talk to you again.
I'm still here.
Talking to you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. I don't know. You could
On an airplane, and they were on a bus.
You could renew an acquaintance there.
Yeah.
Do you get that a lot? I'm sure there are times when you have so much on your mind that people come up, and you probably don't want people to talk to you all the time.
I don't mind it at all. Listen, I think you gather that I like people, and I really don't mind it a bit. It's part of the business. I think when they don't come up and say hello, you better start to worry.
Yeah. Who was it that said that's so crazy because people spend their entire lives trying to develop a career where they'd be recognized, and as soon as they are, then they put the dark glasses on and try to hide in the woodwork someplace, No,
because, it gets to be a frenzy, not for somebody like myself, but you take these young rock stars. They can't go anywhere. These new kids on the block are very, very hot, and they're friends of ours. But one performance, they couldn't even go on and perform.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get near the stage. The kids wouldn't permit it. That's when they have to hide, the Michael Jacksons and...
And I guess Sinatra went through that too, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Well, Sinatra really started it, that Bobby Sox thing. But I think that in those days, a good manager promoted that.
Mm.
They don't have to do it today. That the kids have caught on to that, and if they like somebody, then they scream and they holler, they don't even let them perform.
Yeah. Who was it? Tom Jones or somebody, they said, had a manager who paid some women to throw hotel room keys up on the stage, I guess, at one point.
Well, Tom Jones used to have them throw up panties, I think.
Yeah, and now they still do it.
Right. They just catch on and they go one step farther.
Yeah. So maybe it's a little wilder than it used to be back in the...
Wilder because the audience is so much more tremendous. You're talking to 30, 40 million people at a time.
Yeah. What are some of the strange things that happened to you during the live days of television? Anything really weird ever happen?
Oh, I had a few things happen, yeah. First of all, I was on the air for Old Gold Cigarettes. I was starring in my own show, Chance of a Lifetime, but I also was spokesman on the Amateur Hour and Herb Schreiner's Two for the Money and so on. And I was doing an Old Gold commercial live, and between acts, and I said, all of America's changing to old Lucky Strike. Well, I came off the stage, and somebody said, you said Lucky Strike. And I thought they were kidding. I said, I always do. There was a big gang around backstage, so I called home.
Yeah.
And my wife said, how did it happen? I said, I said it, kids. So I went back on. I said, didn't expect to see me here again after the act, and then the audience applauded and everything else. And a week later, all of the people from the P. Lorillard Company were at the same country club, and Ben Duffy from the agency of Lucky Strike walked up to me and said, hey, you said you'd do it, but we didn't believe it. Here's your check for $25,000. But it was a bogus check.
So you were really embarrassed when it happened, I'm sure.
Oh, my God, yeah. When I left that theater that night, I'm kidding about it now, but it was a traumatic experience. I felt that everybody heard what I did.
Yeah.
I was allowed to ad-lib those commercials coast to coast. I figured I'd never be allowed to do that again. And then I couldn't get it out of my mind. I did like 4 shows a week for them.
Yeah. I interviewed, it was either Frank Nelson or Mel Blanc, one of those two guys that said that years ago in the early days of radio, when they were sponsored by cigarette companies, you always want to make sure that you had the right brand in your pocket.
Oh, yeah, I always had it.
Because some of the announcers that did several shows would have to, even if they didn't smoke, they'd have to make sure that the cigarettes were prominently on the dashboard of their car, maybe, or at least in their pocket. And if somebody asked them for a cigarette, boy, they better pop up with the right one.
Yeah, I always carried mine with me, and I always left them on the table in a restaurant. alongside of my plate, for instance.
Ah.
And also, you remember, we did Old Gold, and I had to train myself on all shows that I emceed and everything, never to say to somebody, well, you're very lucky.
Oh, really?
You're very fortunate.
They were just afraid of the phrase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, they mix them all around. You couldn't even put a cigarette commercial on the air within a half hour from another cigarette commercial.
Yeah. Well, they're not on the air at all anymore, are they?
But I'm talking about anything today.
Yeah. That's right. They don't want them back-to-back at all.
Bring them today back-to-back, which surprises me. You'll get two automobile companies in the same show,
That's true.
Sure.
Yeah. I always thought that was just a fluke when maybe the network had a spot on and the local guy ran a spot.
No, it's not a fluke. It's just that they don't have that control anymore.
Yeah. Well, you were on such shows as Batman, Farmer's Daughter, 77 Sunset Strip, Fantasy Island. You have one of those kind of faces, of course, that was great for those cameo roles, right?
Well, I don't know if it was great enough, but I enjoy doing them.
At least you weren't on so long that anybody got tired of you. But I think you did a lot of walk-on stuff, didn't you? Well, small parts?
Yeah, I had some major leads, too, 2 Kraft theaters and 2 Dick Powell theaters. They were the leads.
Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say just walk-ons, but I mean, you were on like 1 week, and then they'd maybe bring somebody else in the next week.
Right. Well, on Tycoon, I was a doctor, on a regular basis, but on others there would be like a one-time shot or 2 or 3 times and off.
You were also the commentator for the Paramount newsreels?
Yep. I did those for years.
I imagine the pace was a lot less hectic than it would be now being in news, huh?
No, I think it was more hectic then.
Was it really?
Yeah. Because now, you got so many people covering for you. You have tremendous staffs and news people and behind the scenes. In those days, I would be sitting in my apartment in New York and get a call to rush to 57th Street. There's a fire going on or something,
Oh.
And we'd go right out and do it. So I did live news that way on television,
mm-hmm.
besides the Paramount news in the theaters. And then as television came in, naturally the Paramount news was always a week late, and television news was right now. And that's why all those newsreels in the theaters, maybe you're too young to even remember it.
I know I can recall seeing the newsreels, but I figured, well, it's not the most current news. It's not the stuff that happened today, because there's no way they could get it filmed and get it to the theater that soon.
That's why that was the end of the theater newsreels.
Yeah, but they were fun to look at. In fact, they still are. In fact, you'll find some stations that feature old newsreels. It gives you an idea what history was like.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, out here in California, they had it on like every week, and what I did is I started to tape my old newsreels, just to have copies of them.
Uh-huh. What do you do mostly now? I understand you did some dinner theater fairly recently, huh?
Yes. I have my own production company called Dennis James Productions, and I do spokesman work for banks and savings and loans around the country, and I'm the official spokesman for Physicians Mutual Insurance Company out of Omaha. That's a national account. And I haven't been doing much dinner theater lately. It's just been too hectic.
Yeah.
But I've been doing a lot of guest appearances, a lot of charity stuff, a lot of golf tournaments that I MC the show, stand-up comedy kind of stuff. And
So
I've been busier now than I've ever been because I'm traveling so much.
Yeah. Well, that's why we find pictures of you in places. With arms around ladies that just happen to run into you. Life's been good for Dennis James then, right?
It sure has. People say, when are you going to retire? And I say, from what?
Yeah.
Enjoying every minute of it. I'll leave now and go to New York, do the telethon, then I go into Florida, and then to San Diego, and I'll be gone for about a month.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and you're not an accountant, so I don't know if you'd have an answer to this. But when we watch telethons like the United Cerebral Palsy's telethon, and we contribute money, can we be guaranteed that money is really being used most efficiently? Are there a lot of expenses? Certainly there are a lot of expenses to put a telethon on, but it's still probably one of the most efficient ways to raise money, isn't it?
It really is. And in our particular case, Ken, we feel that our costs are about 10%, that's all, of the take. I work absolutely free. All the talent works free. There's no pay.
But it's good exposure for them, right?
For the talent?
Sure.
Well, of course it's good exposure, and they're doing good. Mm-hmm. In my particular case, just think about it. I've been on for 40 years. I see kids that grew up to be able-bodied men and women with children of their own. You see repair, you see progress, and it's a real thrill.
Yeah.
And we're preventing it from happening in other families.
Mm-hmm. And that's Who can ask for more than that, right?
It's like an insurance policy. When somebody watches a telethon next weekend, the 20th and 21st, they make a contribution to that telethon. In effect, they are guaranteeing in the future that their grandchildren will not be born with cerebral palsy. That's a pretty darn good investment to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. It will be on. We're running rapidly out of time here, but it will be on next the 20th and 21st.
20th and 21st.
Saturday. What time does it start?
Well, I don't know what time it starts in Peoria, but we start at 10 o'clock in New York,
Okay.
and we wind up at 8 o'clock that night, the Sunday night, the following night.
Okay.
And we're on the air constantly. And you're going to see it in Peoria, I told you, on Channel 19 WHOI.
That would be our outlet then, I would think.
It's your outlet.
Yeah. Let me take one more call. Is that all right?
Sure.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, I have a question about cerebral palsy. I'm familiar with a 14-year-old who is afflicted. My question is to Mr. James. Does he know, are there any hospitals or clinics or physicians in the country that deal solely with this?
Oh, sure.
Just with cerebral palsy?
Oh, absolutely. Now, what you would want to do is have them check with their cerebral palsy center someplace in that area, and they will put them in touch with somebody who specializes in that.
I would think any doctor would be able to come up with an address, wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, there's the CP centers all over the country, and the best thing to do is check on those, and they'll put them in touch with anybody that in that area that does it.
Okay. And what about books or well-known literature? Are there any titles or anything that you would recommend? This family's having some real problems dealing with her as an adolescent.
I'm sorry, Dennis, I had you...
Because that's what we're doing. That's what the money is raised for. This youngster could get therapy, speech therapy, anything that's necessary at the center if the center has any available time for him. So they should certainly contact the Cerebral Palsy Center.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Really in every area.
All right. I'm not sure where she was calling from, but it certainly had to be here in Central Illinois, that's for sure.
Okay.
Dennis, I've enjoyed talking to you. Keep up the great work, and we'll wish this particular telethon great success in raising all kinds of money.
And I want to say to you, my boy, and to WJBC, thank you very much for taking the time to help us promote this thing, because the bigger the audience, the better we have a chance of success.
Yeah.
And God bless you.
Same to you, Dennis.
Bye-bye now.
I hope we get to do it again sometime. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
11:29 in the a.m. at WJBC.